June 13, 1944, just after dawn, a hedgerow-lined lane outside Villers-Bocage, Normandy. The morning mist still clings to the fields, dampening the smell of crushed grass and cordite. Somewhere beyond the trees, an engine coughs, then settles into a steady growl. Tracks clatter against stone. A German panzer commander lifts his binoculars, peers through the fog and smirks. It's a Sherman. An American M4 Sherman tank rolls into view, tall and boxy, its olive-drab sides streaked with mud. To the men watching from concealed positions, it looks almost comical. Too high, too thin-skinned, a target, not a threat. Someone laughs. For years now, German armored crews have been taught this moment. The Sherman is inferior, its armor too light, its gun too weak. Against a Panther or a Tiger, it's supposed to die quickly, catastrophically. They've seen the reports from North Africa. They've heard the stories from Italy. The Americans build tanks the way they build trucks, cheaply and in bulk, quantity over quality. And here, in the bocage of Normandy, is proof. The commander lowers his binoculars and gives a short, confident order. This will be quick. The first shot hits the Sherman square in the hull. A flash, smoke. The tank jerks to a stop. Inside, men scramble, shouting over the roar of fire and metal. The German crew waits for the explosion that usually follows. It doesn't come. Instead, another Sherman appears, then another, then another. Engines rumble from every direction. Tracks grind forward through mud and broken hedges. The fog begins to lift, and with it comes a sight no one here expected to see. A column. Not one Sherman, not two, but dozens. German laughter fades into silence. This is not how it was supposed to happen. Just 4 years earlier, in 1940, German panzer divisions had rewritten the rules of armored warfare. Sleek Panzer IIIs and IVs sliced through France with speed and coordination no enemy could match. Radios crackled with orders. Tanks moved as a single organism. Victory came fast. By comparison, American armor barely registered in German thinking. When the M4 Sherman first appeared in 1942, German officers were unimpressed. At roughly 30 tons, it was lighter than the Panther. Its 75 guns struggled against sloped German armor. And worst of all, it was tall, easy to spot, easy to hit. Panzer crews nicknamed it Der Tommyknocker, the Tommy Cooker. Hit a Sherman and it would burn. So they laughed, they mocked, they welcomed it. But what German intelligence failed to grasp wasn't the Sherman itself. It was the idea behind it. Back in the United States, the tank wasn't designed to be the strongest. It was designed to arrive. Factories in Detroit, Chicago, and Pittsburgh worked around the clock. Assembly lines never stopped. Welding sparks flew day and night as hulls rolled forward, turrets dropped into place, engines bolted in with mechanical precision. A single design, standardized parts, trained crews. The result wasn't a perfect tank. It was an unstoppable process. By 1944, America wasn't just producing Shermans. It was flooding continents with them. And now in Normandy, that flood was breaking over German lines. The panzer commander outside Villers-Bocage orders another shot. Another Sherman burns. Black smoke coils into the sky like a signal flare. But the Americans don't stop. They maneuver, they flank. Infantry advances alongside them, rifles at the ready, sticking close to the steel hulls. Radios chatter constantly. Artillery coordinates in the background, unseen but ever present. A German gun fires again and again. Still, the Shermans keep coming. One replaces another. A damaged tank pulls back. A fresh one rolls forward. The line never thins. The pressure never eases. You can almost feel it now, the shift in the air, confidence draining away, the creeping realization that this isn't a duel. It's a tide. By mid-morning, the battlefield sounds different. Not sharp bursts of surprise, but the steady, grinding noise of sustained assault. Shells whistle overhead. Machine guns chatter from hedgerows. Fighter bombers roar above the clouds, diving low, rockets screaming toward German positions. A panzer crew scrambles to relocate, but the terrain betrays them. The hedgerows that once concealed now confine. Sherman tanks, guided by infantry and radioed coordinates, close in methodically. This is not elegance. This is pressure. Relentless, industrial, unforgiving. German doctrine prized precision, the perfect ambush, the killing blow, but here perfection doesn't matter. Only endurance does. Hours later, smoke hangs heavy over the fields. Burned-out vehicles dot the lanes. Some are American, many are German. The panzer commander surveys the wreckage, exhaustion etched into his face. The Sherman was never supposed to survive this long. It was never supposed to dominate the battlefield. And yet here it is, not as a single machine but as a system. Tanks, infantry, artillery, air power, all moving together, all replacing losses faster than they can be inflicted. For the first time, the laughter is gone completely. In its place is something far more dangerous. Understanding. Because if this is what one morning looks like, what happens when it goes on for weeks? What happens when the numbers don't stop? The German officers are about to find out. July 25, 1944, 09:38 hours, near Saint-Lô, Normandy. The ground shakes before the sound arrives. A deep, rolling thunder spreads across the countryside as hundreds of Allied bombers pass overhead. The sky darkens, not with clouds but with aircraft. Flying fortresses, B-24 Liberators, their bomb bay doors open in unison. Then the earth explodes. You can almost feel the shockwaves punching through the soil, collapsing trenches, flipping armored vehicles like toys. German soldiers press themselves into the dirt, hands over helmets, mouths open in silent screams as the bombardment tears the front line apart. This is Operation Cobra. And it is the moment German armor stops laughing altogether. When the bombing lifts, what remains of the German defensive line is stunned, fractured, and exposed. Communications are severed. Command posts reduced to craters. Roads turned into broken ribbons of dust and flame. Then the Shermans move. They don't rush, they advance. Wave after wave of American M4s roll forward, their engines roaring in a continuous mechanical chorus. Infantry clings to their sides, rifles up, eyes scanning the hedgerows. Tank radios crackle with calm, clipped commands. This isn't an armored duel anymore. It's a combined arms machine coming back to life. German panzer commanders try to respond as doctrine demands. Counterattack, concentrate armor, strike the flanks. But there's a problem. Their tanks are scattered. Panthers and Panzer IVs, already scarce, are spread thin across the front. Isolated by destroyed roads and smashed bridges, fuel trucks lie in smoking ruins. Ammunition is rationed. Replacements are a fantasy. And everywhere they turn, Shermans. If a Panther knocks one out, another appears. If a Tiger ambushes from cover, artillery answers within minutes. If German armor tries to maneuver, fighter bombers descend like hawks. The Americans don't need to win every engagement. They only need to keep coming. A German Tiger commander peers through his gun sight as a Sherman crests a hedgerow. He fires. The American tank erupts in flame. Then another replaces it. Then another. The Tiger fires again. The barrel glows, sweat pours down the gunner's face. He knows he can kill them. He's proven that. What he can't do is stop them. Because behind the Shermans come bulldozers clearing paths through hedgerows, engineers laying steel trackway across mud, recovery vehicles dragging damaged tanks back to be repaired and returned to the fight. This is something the German army was never built to face. By late afternoon, American units are punching through gaps that simply shouldn't exist. German officers shout orders into dead radios. Runners sprint between units, only to be cut down by artillery fire. The battlefield has become fluid, chaotic. And in the chaos, the Sherman thrives. Not because it's invincible, but because it's replaceable. American logistics push fuel and ammunition forward at astonishing speed. Field workshops repair tracks, engines, and turrets within hours. Crews are trained, rotated, replaced. The system absorbs losses and keeps moving. For German armor, every destroyed tank is a tragedy. For the Americans, it's a delay. A Panzer officer watches his remaining tanks fall back, engines coughing, armor scarred. He remembers the early days of the war, the confidence, the precision, the belief that superior machines and superior crews would always win. Now that belief feels old. The Sherman was mocked for being simple. But simplicity is exactly why it works. It doesn't need perfection, it needs momentum. And momentum is something Germany no longer has. As night falls, the front line doesn't stabilize. It dissolves. American armor pours through breaches, fanning out into the French countryside. German units retreat not in formation but in fragments. The war, once tightly controlled, begins to unravel. Somewhere in the darkness, a German staff officer writes in his report that the enemy's strength lies not in individual tanks, but in their endless presence. A quiet admission, a terrifying one. Because if Normandy is only the beginning, what happens when this machine reaches Germany itself? August 7, 1944, 02:10 hours, near Mortain, western France. The night is thick with smoke and damp air. Engines idle in the darkness, kept low, barely audible. German tank crews sit tense inside their steel hulls, hands resting on levers, eyes fixed on narrow vision slits. This is the counterattack. Operation Luttich. Hit the Americans hard, cut off their spearheads, restore the front. That's the order. Panthers and Panzer IVs roll forward under cover of darkness, slipping through gaps in the American lines. For a moment, it almost feels like the old days. Surprise, movement, initiative. German commanders allow themselves a flicker of hope. Then the radios come alive. American forward observers have spotted the advance. Flares rise into the night sky, bathing the battlefield in harsh white light. The hedgerows glow, shadows vanish. And suddenly the air screams. Artillery crashes down with terrifying precision. Shells burst among the advancing tanks, tearing open tracks, stunning crews, breaking formations. The German advance slows, then staggers. The Shermans haven't even appeared yet. They don't need to. At first light, the Americans counter. Shermans emerge from concealed positions, turrets already trained. Infantry advances behind them, methodical, disciplined. Overhead, fighter-bombers circle, waiting for the smoke to clear. A German Panther fires, knocking out a Sherman at close range. Another Sherman rolls into its place. Then another. It becomes impossible to tell how many there are. A German commander shouts orders, trying to coordinate a breakthrough, but his radio is dead. The crew beside him is gone, their tank burning fiercely in the early morning light. This isn't a battle of maneuver anymore. It's a battle of survival. By mid-morning, Operation Luttich is collapsing. German tanks are fighting in isolation, each crew cut off, each engagement a desperate attempt to escape encirclement. Shermans appear from unexpected angles, guided by infantry who now know the terrain better than the defenders. And when German armor tries to withdraw, they can't. Allied air power owns the sky. The moment a tank moves in daylight, it draws attention. Rockets strike, bombs fall, tracks shatter, vehicles burn. The Sherman doesn't chase alone. It hunts with the entire Allied war machine behind it. A wounded German officer is pulled from his disabled Panzer, dragged into a shallow ditch as American fire rakes the road. He stares through the smoke, watching Sherman tanks roll past in steady columns, their white stars stark against the grime. There's no pause, no hesitation, just forward motion. He realizes then what so many others already have. The Sherman was never meant to win duels. It was meant to win wars. In after-action reports, German officers use unfamiliar language. They write about material superiority and enemy replacement rates. They stop talking about tactics and start talking about numbers. That shift matters because it means something fundamental has changed. The German army, once confident in its ability to outthink and outfight any opponent, now understands it is being outproduced, outsustained, outlasted, and there is no counter for that on the battlefield. By the time American forces begin closing the Falaise pocket, German armor is exhausted. Crews abandon tanks for lack of fuel. Panthers are blown up by their own men to prevent capture. Tigers are left in ditches, silent monuments to a doctrine that can no longer function. Sherman's roll past them without stopping. There's no need. The battle has already been decided. As the sun sets over Normandy, the realization spreads through the German ranks like a chill. The laughter is gone, the mockery forgotten. In its place is a truth no amount of bravery or skill can erase. You cannot defeat an enemy who can replace everything you destroy. And this enemy is just getting started. September 14, 1944, late afternoon, near the German border outside Aachen. Rain streaks down the armor of a Sherman tank as it idles on a muddy road. The crew inside is exhausted, faces unshaven, eyes hollow from weeks of continuous advance. They've crossed France faster than anyone predicted, chasing a retreating enemy who no longer fights for ground, only for time. Ahead of them lies Germany. For German commanders, the nightmare they feared in Normandy has followed them home. The Sherman, once ridiculed, now appears everywhere. In towns, on highways, at river crossings, its silhouette becomes synonymous with Allied inevitability. German soldiers don't need binoculars anymore to identify it. They recognize the sound first, that constant engine note, that steady clatter of tracks. It means the front has moved again. And it isn't moving back. At Aachen, the first major German city to face a full Allied assault, the pattern repeats. German armor fights bravely, Panthers positioned in rubble, Tigers firing from narrow streets. In close quarters, they are still deadly. But it no longer matters. Shermans don't attack alone. They are backed by artillery that pounds positions into dust. Engineers clear obstacles under fire. Infantry storms buildings room by room. If a tank is lost, another arrives by nightfall. German crews notice something unsettling. The Americans don't slow down. Losses that would have halted a German offensive barely register in Allied planning. The advance pauses only long enough to refuel, rearm, and reorganize. Then it resumes. Relentlessly. A German panzer officer watches his remaining vehicles pull back through the ruins. He remembers lectures at the panzer schools. Precision, superiority, the idea that better machines, better men would always prevail. No one prepared them for this. For an enemy whose strength lies not in brilliance, but in endurance. The Sherman is the embodiment of that endurance. Simple, reliable everywhere. On the Western Front, American supply lines stretch back across the Atlantic. Liberty ships arrive in endless convoys. Trucks, thousands of them, pour fuel, ammunition, and spare parts forward. The Red Ball Express never stops running. German intelligence knows the numbers now. They just can't do anything about them. As winter approaches, German High Command searches desperately for a way to reverse the tide. New tanks, new tactics, one final gamble. Operation Whacked im Rhein. The Ardennes. One last chance to prove that superior armor and surprise can still change the course of the war. And once again, the Sherman will be there to meet it. December 16, 1944. Dawn, the Ardennes forest. Snow blankets the trees. American units are caught off guard as German armor punches through thin lines. Panthers and Tigers surge forward, their guns blazing. For a brief moment, German commanders feel something they haven't felt in months. Hoping. But it doesn't last. As the battle drags on, the same pattern emerges. Shermans arrive in force, digging in, holding roads and towns at all costs. They are outgunned, out-armored, and yet they refuse to break. Air power returns when the skies clear. Artillery crushes German columns. Fuel shortages cripple the offensive. And once more, German tanks find themselves facing not one Sherman, but many. By January, the offensive is over. German armor lies frozen and abandoned in the snow. The Sherman rolls on, scarred, patched, still fighting. The final realization settles in. The Sherman didn't need to be the best tank of the war. It only needed to be there. Every time. Everywhere. From Normandy's hedgerows to Germany's streets, the laughter that once greeted the Sherman has turned into resignation. Because the men who once mocked it now understand the truth. Wars are not won by the strongest machine. They are won by the machine that never stops coming. March 7, 1945. 15-20 hours, the western bank of the Rhine River, Remagen. Smoke hangs low over the water. The Ludendorff Bridge still stands damaged, burning, but intact. American infantry rush forward, weapons raised, hearts pounding. And behind them, Sherman tanks grind toward the river, engines straining, crews shouting over the noise. German officers stare in disbelief. This was not supposed to happen. For months, German command had assumed the Rhine would be the final barrier. Bridges would be destroyed, crossings delayed, time bought. But now, Shermans are rolling onto German soil faster than plans can be rewritten. Some of them cross the bridge itself. Others follow soon after on pontoon bridges, steel plates rattling beneath their tracks. Within hours, American armor is pouring across the Rhine in numbers no German staff officer thought possible. And once again, the Sherman is at the center of it. Inside a battered German command post, an officer studies a map covered in red grease pencil marks. Every arrow points east. Every arrow is American. He doesn't ask what kind of tanks they are anymore. It doesn't matter. They all mean the same thing. The front is collapsing. In the final weeks of the war, German resistance becomes fragmented, desperate. Panthers and Tigers appear sporadically, often without fuel, sometimes without trained crews. Even when they fight, the outcome is predictable. A Tiger destroys 2 Shermans. 3 more take their place. Artillery answers, airstrikes follow, infantry moves in. The system functions perfectly. American crews know the cost. They've seen friends lost inside burning hulls. They've climbed out of wrecked tanks with singed uniforms and shaking hands. They understand better than anyone that the Sherman is not invulnerable. But they also understand something else. They are never alone. There is always another tank coming up behind them. Always another unit moving to support. Always another convoy crossing the ocean to keep the advance alive. By April, Shermans roll through towns whose names German officers once believed would never see enemy armor. Wurzburg, Nuremberg, Leipzig. The war has come home. Civilians watch silently as American tanks pass through shattered streets, white stars caked with mud and dust. To them, the Sherman isn't a machine. It's a message. This is over. On April 25, 1945, American and Soviet forces meet at the Elbe River. The war in Europe is nearly finished. German armored units, once feared across the world, are shadows of their former selves. Their crews no longer laugh. They no longer mock. They simply surrender. In the end, the Sherman story is not one of technical superiority. It is a story of belief, of an industrial nation that understood modern war would be decided by systems, not singular weapons. German officers laughed at the Sherman because they judged it alone. They never imagined it would come with an entire world behind it. Factories, ships, fuel, men, aircraft, artillery. An avalanche. The M4 Sherman didn't crush German armor by being unstoppable. It crushed it by being unstoppable together. And by the time German commanders fully understood that, it was already far too late.